Greetings. Guten Tag, Talafalava. This is Dr. Snow Brown speaking to you all, especially to my Snow K Club congregation. And now what? They're still there, except the kingdom is closed. That's correct. If you want to enter my kingdom, you'll have to send me a friend request. It isn't going to be like open, an open door to every other Dick and Harry or anybody like it used to be. That's correct. So if you want to enter my kingdom, you need to send me a friend request. But like I said, it doesn't mean that I'll accept you. That's correct. Just like with a lot of things that I'm learning, like today here in this local township, that's correct. There's some things, doesn't always go your way, it doesn't always go your way. Because some people will either are still applying their arbitrary dictatorships, or they're still dictating from the level of commoners and ratbags and criminals. That's correct. And it's so bloody typical. I wonder why they do that. Why do they need to enter your private spaces? Why do they need to stalk you on your digital devices? That's correct. And why do they need to dictate to your Facebook as well, even when it's closed? Why do they need to access it unlawfully and arbitrarily? That's a really good question. I mean, it's not like I don't know them personally. They're just absolute strangers. That's like they would say the same thing about you. That's correct. As for my Knights and Chiefs of the 150 Days War program, well, I'll say this now. You're welcome to quit. You can stop during the 150 Days War program altogether right now. That's correct. Right on this day, starting on the 20th of May. You can quit. That's correct. You don't need to do the blood prayers. You don't need to pray any prayers. That's correct. If you're not in the mood, and if you want to just, I don't know, go on holiday, take a vacation, take a break, do so. Because that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment, except I am busy getting ready for the restraining order. That's correct. Now, we've got until about the 29th of June for the restraining order to be filed in the courts. Now, whether it be in the courts of this country, but I call Muddy Waters, Kiwi land, that's correct, New Zealand Aotearoa, right, I've got until the 29th of June to file my restraining order. Now, of course, today, all last night I worked on my so-called 18 trespass notices, would you believe? I know. Does that sound ridiculous? Crazy? 18 trespass notices that I was to serve upon MBB KKK associates. And some of those people were the most dangerous. That almost a lot of them were the most dangerous MBB KKK associates. And a few members, that's correct. So I went to the police station. Now, I spoke to the senior sergeant. Her name is Sergeant Candy, the local Upper Hutt police station, about a week ago, about last week. That's correct. And I asked, whether I could, have my trespass notices completed and brought down to the station for so-called special officers to serve. That's correct, on my behalf. And she had no problem. She had no problems with it. She was, forthcoming and was very, very, articulate about it. When I spoke to her, it was almost like, wow, all I need to do is fill out my trespass notices, because I've never had that privilege where officers, in uniform, officials, in the form of officers that have been sworn to serve the needs of the community of this country. That's correct. Well, let's just say every citizen's not. So I've discovered it isn't the case. Majority of Pākehās that are born in New Zealand, they'll get first preference. Then the second lot of people will be the Maoris that were born in this country. Now, they will get second preference. That's correct. Now, as for the rest of everybody else, irrespective of the fact that you might have, as being a citizen for 39 years, it doesn't count. That's correct. Especially if you were, say, you immigrated from a little island, dotted in the little ocean, in some ocean. That's correct. That is horrible. That is disgusting. But that's what I'm talking about, the attitude of New Zealand that is very racist. You'll find that it's still racist and prejudiced. That's correct. Now, you might say the same thing about my church TV. Well, I'm a Knights Templar. I'm an ordained Knights Templar. I'm a sovereign head. I'm a German Knights Templar king. That's correct. There you go. I'm a sovereign head. I've got a right to be prejudiced. In fact, I've got more rights to be prejudiced. That's correct. And also to be ignorant. But you see, that's just the way my Lord made me. That's just the way I was created, for a purpose, for a much bigger purpose. But mine, of course, is a private monarch. That's correct. Now, at the moment, it's closed for 6 years. But from time to time, it will open, depending on, like if it's something important or if something comes up that I need to share. That's correct. But I'm still preaching. Except today, probably I'm preaching about service of trespass notices. Who makes the decisions in every local police station in New Zealand to give you either the privilege of having their officers serve your trespass notices or not? Who makes that call? Who makes that decision? Who makes that administrative decision? That's a really good question. Is it the Minister of Justice or the Prime Minister of New Zealand that makes that decision? No, I'm guessing the discretion is entirely on the sergeant of the police station. But this is how I deal. This is how I deal with so-called. If I was the sergeant of the police station, and I had a noble such as Dr. Snow Brown, Her Majesty, Her Royal Highness El Marilia Treviranus, brackets Dr. Snow Brown, come down to our to the local police station, and completed 18 trespass notice to be served. That's correct. Upon some of the most dangerous, MB Red and White Demons associates, and I mean the most dangerous criminals ever. That's correct. Gangster mobsters. Do you think I would advise somebody like that, with notices like that? Some of them are part of the elite, the most powerful elites, that's correct. And some of them are also very, very dangerous people locally. Would I advise that person decline to give a reject card and say, I'm sorry, but we're fully booked, or we're chock-a-block, or, we just don't have the facilities, the resources to cater to your needs, as in, well, we just don't have enough officers to go and serve your trespass notices. 18? And yet, they got the discretion as any Dick and Harry that comes down to the station. They don't have a problem. They don't say no. That's correct. And here's a noble. Hey, you're a true noble. A royal. That's correct. And they tell you, oh, well, we can only serve one of your trespass notice, just that one. But the rest, and I had to persuade them to serve the other one because, well, it's both here on Floor and McCurdy Walk. And of course, the sergeant said, right, yes, okay, we'll serve those two. As for the rest, the advice was, get registered post, serve them via registered post. Does the sergeant of Sergeant Candy understand how much it cost to serve a trespass notice these days via registered post? At the most, probably the most expensive, about $14 or $6, depending where you're sending it to. But I mean, is that really necessary? Can you imagine sending every trespass notice? That's right. So she's serving only 2 by her officers. Now, that's 18. That's right, out of 2. So there's 16. So there's 16 trespass notice that still needs to be served, and one of them is for our tour Dr. Tavi Telipine. Now, he's based in Samoa. That's correct. So how would I need to serve that notice? You will not by registered post. You would have to send it through via email. That's correct. Now, the other one is up in Auckland. It costs money. Yeah, last time I did serve it. All my other trespass notices previously, I served every one of them. There were about 30 of them, and I served them. That's correct. Initially. At that time, it would have been about 2019, towards the end of 2019, about August 2019, I started serving trespass notices, 30 of them. And the main reason was, I was trying to figure out, I was trying to find a solution to stop the arbitrary dictatorships that are going on, the harms, the tortures, and the harms that was going on here at my current address. Because I was thinking, well, hopefully if I serve these trespass notice to these particular associates that I believe are connected to the so-called criminals inside this address, hopefully the harms might stop, any unlawful entries and trespassing and all these other, evils that's been going on here during my tenancy, especially during the pandemic. Hopefully it's going to stop. Well, unfortunately it didn't. That's correct. It continued. So the aim really was serving of those trespass notice. My situation was a life-threatening situation. It was ASP, it was necessary. I didn't serve trespass notices like that as a joke, let alone to make it look like it's a habit or a bad habit. People don't serve trespass notices like that unless they are a noble, unless they are royal. If they are reasoned, so there must be a reason why. Could be because their life is under threat, and they are living among the most dangerous people. That's great. And it might be also that the noble has been targeted and has been harmed by the most toxic and the most notorious criminals, and that is the only way to protect herself as well as anybody in her immediate royal family or private monarch. That's correct. So that was the real reason. So that, and also I wanted to figure out where the harm was coming from, and whether it was connected to the local Mongol Mob Association. And so it was. And so more my own personal research and investigation has revealed that, yes, all those decisions that you received came from that red demon, and with their white associates. That's correct. It did. So you can see now why the second lot of trespass notices, well, the first lot has expired. And I have kept records as to what happened. So whether any of those antisocial behaviors or harmful criminal behaviors stopped when I served those notices. No, it did not stop. No, it did not stop, especially the son of a bitch here next door. It proceeded on, it continued on. So the harms of arbitrary dictatorships, that's correct. The tortures and cruelties, the slavery, that's correct. The treatment of being a slave on the level of a slave or an M&B slave, that's correct. That continued on, that's correct. So that's what I'm talking about. So what would it made a difference if the police officers had served my notices? Would the so-called criminals or the offenders or the associates who are applying, misusing, and especially the elites, are misusing and abusing their privileges as elites, would they have taken it seriously? Would they have stopped the harms? Probably it would have been taken seriously, that's correct, because generally these criminals, if something is served by a sworn officer in uniform, they do take it seriously. And they do stop, and they do respect their authority, especially if it comes from a sergeant of the police station. Except, when they want to play up, except when they want to be a rat bag, that's correct, it's a different story. So let's hope that the son of a bitch next door is going to stop his behavior. Let's hope that the police officer, that the so-called Sergeant Candy, served the notice today. I hope she did, because this son of a bitch deserves it. He deserves it. But the harms and especially the unlawful entries and the trespassing need to stop. And also the drugging. That was the other reason why I served the initial 30 lots of trespass notices, was because a lot of those associates were targeting this victim and applying M&B, KKK protocols, criminal harmful protocols to my privileges. That's correct. They were all applying them. That's correct. So I was justified in serving every single one of them a trespass notice with those special conditions. It behaved like a restraining order. That's correct. But of course, they're commoners and criminals, so they wouldn't understand how nobles like yourself, German nobles, think. That's correct. So if they're so thick and stupid, they would have been so ignorant and not taken it seriously when they should have. They should have heeded the warnings, because if a notice has been served to you, it doesn't matter, even if it's stuck on your door. if you receive it, if you take it off your door, that's great. You have actually received the warning to stay off, and also to apply any of those conditions that were placed on the so-called notice. Especially if it comes from a noble, especially if it comes from a royal, that's correct. A full royal. You ought to heed the warnings, but you ought to respect her boundaries. My boundaries. Do you see me targeting the Māori king in this country? Do you see me wanting to be a pervert to His Royal Highnesses? That's great. Tui hei te po tau tau te wherewhero the seven. So-called, what he's doing in his private spaces in his own humble abode? Or in his own castle? Do you see me and my family wanting to enter other people's private spaces to be perverts, which is what's been happening inside this address? No, I didn't think so either. Thank God that my royal family, we've got common sense, but we've got brains as well. And we most certainly do not have those kind of antisocial behaviors that are so detrimental and insidious, where we think we have a right to pervert to somebody in their private spaces? Enter their private spaces, their private sanctuary, and invade and violate their so-called, privacy and their security? Do you think that's okay to do that? How do you suppose the Māori king would feel if I should come to his place? That's great. And enter his so-called bedroom, bathroom, and use his bathroom? That's correct. Do my laundry in the laundry room? That's correct. Eat all their food, be nosy, open up his fridge, that's correct. And scavenge for food, let alone, let me see what's inside the cupboards, that's correct, in the kitchen. I'm sure His Royal Highness won't mind if I invade his so-called, if I sleep in his bed like Goldilocks, that's correct. Or let me steal his gloves. Oh, those are nice warm gloves, that's correct. Is there anything else that I can help myself to? Oh, hell no. His Royal Highness would not want me to abuse my privileges, any such privileges, or misuse any such privileges in any sense of the word in such a form, because, it's just not, it's not appropriate. It is disgusting. It is invasive. It is, it's so violating. And it's also extremely rude. You can understand now why I do not like these people at all inside this address. That's correct. Why are there so many of you? All of a sudden. There was never that many, 5 of you. That's correct. A lot of pumpkin patches I've seen that's great coming in. All of a sudden. It wasn't the case about, say, when I initially came to this address. Wasn't the case. There was probably a few there. But you can understand now why I don't accept the Sergeant Candy's decision not to serve the other 16 trespass notice. So I'm going back to the station. So when I come back to the station, whether it might be next week on Monday or next week, could you please, Sergeant Candy, could you please make sure that you have about 10 officers, 10 or 16 officers to serve these trespass notices? Because I don't like the excuse, I haven't got enough officers to go and serve your trespass notices. Or I just don't have the resources. You know what? That's a poor excuse. I've been here 39 years as a New Zealand citizen. And my ministry, I'm a very important person, honey, but what do you think? I'm a royal. I'm a noble. It's such an insult. It's a real affront to a noble like myself to be told that I ought to go and serve all 16, the rest of my so-called notices that have been completed via registered poultry is so damn expensive. There's no need for it. You got a lot of officers. If that one officer can actually serve all 16 notices, and it doesn't cost money at all, but your officers are sworn to serve the interest of every citizen out there. Now, if you don't want to serve my interest, then I must be I must be in the too hard basket, honey bun. What do you think? That's correct. But you see, I'm more important. You see, I'm above the elites. That's correct. I am above every citizen in this country, even the ratbag, especially the criminals. That's right, the crimmies. I am a noble. But of course, try telling that. It's like they are so thick, these people. And you kind of wonder what rights did they have in giving you all those decisions that came from a criminal organization? What's a criminal organization doing? Targeting a noble like myself. That's great. My royal family. Why do you need to give us decisions like that are not part of our so-called family's legacy, our heritage? It's not part of our bloodline, our nobility. We are of nobility. That's correct. We don't have anything to do with such people of such caliber, such, I don't know, satanic, demonic, depraved levels. That's correct. We are people we are far more superior. And I don't like to use the word superior at all. But that's what it means to be a royal. That's what it means to be a royal. Royals are far more superior, are above every citizen in this country. And yet, look at the commoner's attitude. Look at the Sergeant Kenny's attitude in saying, what an excuse. What a poor excuse for a sergeant. That's great. That I haven't got enough officers available to go and serve your notices. And yet, when the Maoris come, the noble Maoris come, that's right, or every other Dick and Harry, like a commoner, or even a criminal, and even the president of such an organization, like a criminal organization, in terms of the red one, the white one, she's got no problems. She has more respect for them. That's great. And that's only because they'll probably intimidate her and threaten her. Hey, if you don't do things, if you don't get me what I want, if you don't do what I want, that's great. I'm going to teach you a fucking good lesson. I'm going to teach you a good lesson. That's great. Oh, there's no doubt that there are Pākehās out there, especially the Irish community, that there's no such thing. They will jump up and down and start screaming and yelling at Sergeant so-called Candy. I'm not taking any of your nonsense. I don't want any excuses. I want my notices served now. That's correct. Don't give me that bullshit. You've been paid to do your job, Sergeant, so get some officers. I don't give a damn. That's correct. I want 15, 16 of them, every one of them that is not doing anything useful at the moment, that is available 24/7 to come, to what? To serve my notices. Why? Because it's important. I don't know, what kind of sergeant are you? That's correct. What exactly does New Zealand police stand for? What do you do every day? That's correct. Not much at all is what I'm hearing. Sounds like you're all having sex on the go. That's correct. You're a bunch of whores. Instead of doing your job, because that is part of your job, you get paid to serve notices. You swore to serve our interests. Now, I'm a noble. If I want to come down, I hardly ever come down to the police station and demand to have anything done for me. That's correct. But I can't believe it that Honey Bun, for the second time, the last time, they didn't serve any of my trespass notices. I did it all. I freaking did it all by myself. That's correct. And some of these people whose notices that I am going to serve, that's correct. Like Kevin Wilkes, Gayleen Riley, that's great. They've had police officers. Deborah Johnson, they've had police officers serve notices to me. That's correct. And here it is, a true noble, come down, and Sergeant Candy thinks it's a joke. Do you think you want to make a mockery of me? Do you want to test me? Because even I can teach you a lesson. That's correct, Sergeant. Just don't make me put you out of a job. That's correct. Because if I have to serve these notices myself, which I've done before, because after all, I'm experienced in it, I've never had any police officer serve any notices on my behalf. If I look back at history, you know how insulting that is? That I've been here 39 years in your country, and you still want to give that black nigger sort of attitude, eh? That's correct. Well, it's so cool. There must be the standard they give to the Maoris, to the dumb Maoris. That's correct. Or dumb islanders, or dumb people. That's correct. It sounds like it. And yet, some sort of whitey comes along who is just either a juvenile delinquent or not much at all. And they what? Oh, that's correct. Just give me a notice. I'll serve it. No problems. They're commoners. They're not important people. Know the difference. If a noble comes, nobles, you don't say no to them. You do not do that. Unless some ratbag or some criminal is dictating to the noble's privileges. How dare? To my privileges? That's rude. That's correct. They don't do that to other Pākehās. And certainly not to the Māori nobles and other nobles in our community. But you dare do it to me. Only because I live among these so-called criminals or ratbags in this address? Oh my God. Please what? Please tell me that what? That you got more what? She must have more brain cells. She's got to have more brain cells than that. That's great. I'm sorry. I'm not taking your excuse. Are you, honey bun? No. I'm not some crazy crazy woman. I don't sweat my blood all night filling out trespass notices. It's a joke. It's a joke. I don't joke. I don't make jokes like that, and I don't want officers, especially not a senior, not a sergeant of a police station, to make what? To make a fool out of me. Don't you dare. I might not be paid. I might not have a job like yours, but I sure as hell I'm not going to have that kind of ignorant attitude, bad attitude. Do you think it's easy for people like the rest of them just to give a 5-year banning and 2-year trespass notice? Do you think it's easy just to give out, dish out the ref card? And you want to save their faces. You don't want your officers to serve notices, my notices, which are more worthy. That's correct. I got more credibility. Because you don't want them to be embarrassed and humiliated. Oh my God! Don't say no more. That's correct. How dare you humiliate and denigrate? That's correct. My face, my noble face, by giving me a 5 years banning and 2 years trespass, that was not necessary. That you had no right to give me. That's correct. But when you want what? Well, when you want your face to be protected. You don't want to what? You don't want your feelings to be hurt? You don't want to be humiliated in front of other people? You tell the senior sergeant, that's right, how to do her job, how to do her fucking job, which is, no. We don't want any officers to serve her trespass notice to us because we can't handle it. Because why? Because you're white. But you're dumb asses and you're bloody cowards to give decisions like that to a noble like me that you had no right to go there. That's correct. You got the nerve. So how come you can't handle? Honey bun, can you believe it? They can't handle a police officer coming to serve my notices in their fucking faces. That's correct. How do you suppose people like me feel? That's correct. When we get targeted for no good reason by criminal organizations that have got no rights to go there. You don't ever dare target the Māori King, do you? No, you don't. And don't you ever dare target me again, my family, my royal family. You got no right, New Zealand. You son of a bitches, indeed. What did I ever do to them? Do they ever give decisions like that to them, to His Royal Highness? Never! Do you ever invade his personal spaces? Never! How rude! You people deserve the death penalty, that's correct. For what you get up and do, and what you do here. Sneaking around, getting up to mischief, and thinking it's okay to just dish out the wrath to me. That's correct. And to make fun of you as well. That's correct. But they can't handle anyone. Oh my God. They must be a bunch of fools. Gutless swine. Do they want to save their faces? Oh, I don't want a police officer to come knocking on my door, let alone come at the Hapahat Coffee Club to serve me a trespass notice that comes from that particular, from that thing, or that it, that's correct, or that bitch, that's correct. And yet, honey bun, can you explain to me? And yet they're just commoners, And they're just criminals as well. They are despicable ratbags as well. They got no manners either. They go behind people's backs, that's correct, and stab them through like these guys here. And they sure do know how to teach you lessons, all right? The English have just got a terrible addiction to doing evils through the so-called brown niggers here in this country. But in terms of serving the trespass notice, you know what? It's the senior sergeant's call, honey bun. It's their discretion to serve the trespass notice. But at the end of the day, if a noble comes down to your police station and starts screaming and yelling, I want my notice to be served by a sworn officer because I'm a noble and it's my right and it's a right of a noble's convention that that's right, that their trespass notice must be served by a sworn officer now. Do you get what I mean? You understand now why I'm a king and I don't like this kind of bullshit that the commoners are giving me? That's right, honey bun. Denying me my privileges as a noble. And yet the son of a bitches who are commoners are getting the treatment. Yeah, the royal treatment. That's great. That ain't on at all. That's not on. Are you saying to me, honey bun, are they saying that the so-called contribution of my so-called... Do you know that I've got a brother who's a constable? And that's the other thing that's so insulting, holy mother, honey bun. It's the fact that I've got a brother... who is a constable in Murupara. He lives in Rotorua, that's correct. You all know Constable Walter, that's correct. And yet, oh my God, they can't serve my trespass notices. How insulting is that? It's my brother's contribution to your community and the serving of your so-called people, that's correct. Is not good enough? Is his service not good enough? I bet you what. I bet you my brother, that's great. Day in, day out. How he serves his community, all right. He gives them, but I'll tell you right now, he ain't no fucking slave to your country, do you hear me? He don't work for you as a slave, do you understand that? Don't you give me that attitude, that's correct. Don't you dare. He's a white boy, all right. But he's a robo. And the rest of you are nothing. You ought to show us some respect. And so the brown monarch, we got every right to demand respect from this country. Even from the sergeant of the police station, for God's sake. And every other citizen, every local in this township. You ought to have respect for the brown monarch. And especially this noble. So when you see me out there, you better respect me. That's correct. If that president can demand respect from the sergeant or the minister and get 2.5 million from the elite, then I can damn well demand whatever I want from you, New Zealand. If you're not going to bother respect me, if you're not going to bother with your donation, hey, I moved on. But if you're going to deny me, dictate, apply your dictatorships like this, arbitrary dictatorship, you got no freaking right doing. That's great. That is utterly disgusting for a noble and it's insulting. I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to teach you all a lesson. How rude. I don't blame the married nobles if they go down to the police station and start screaming and jumping up and down. That's great. That stupid son of a bitch there in Oriental Bay. What's his name, honey bun? Not Mr. Willow, Mr. Jackass. Anthony Shaw. Well, he doesn't need to scream and yell and jump up and down to, hey, I want a police officer to serve my trespass notice now! That's correct! He doesn't need to! He just has to tell them, exactly, can you serve my trespass notice? Before I go nuts in this country, in this township? That's correct. Obviously, my brother, you know what? If I were my brother who's a constable, Walter, hey, you ought to leave the New Zealand police force and you ought to dump that township in Murupara. You're wasting your gifts and talents and you're wasting that's great. You're wasting your so-called, My brother, my poor brother, that's great. If this is the kind, if they're not going to respect their sister, that's great. If they're going to deny you, treat you like that, like some garbage. Ooh, our family ain't garbages, you know that. We ain't whores either. That's great. Irrespective of what the bloody locals say, that's right. They don't know what the criminals say inside this building. As for the elite, I don't ever want any of you, especially the ones that I'm going to serve trespass notice to. I don't ever want any of you to ever dare abuse and misuse your privileges as elites to me inside this address through these people, these criminals, all right? We got that clear? I hope so. Because a lot of you deserve a hiding, all right? When I think about the fact that, my God, what some of us have to do in order to get something done. Get our needs met. I've got every right to get my needs met. What about me? That's correct. My God, New Zealand. They have the nerve to deny me my privileges to serve my trespass notice only because, well, we just didn't want our faces to be humiliated. You know what? Get over it and grow up, people. That's correct. Trespass notices are part of the Kiwi so-called culture. But if it comes from a noble, you deserve it. That's correct. Take it on the chin. Just like I've taken it on the chin all the time. If you're so-called arbitrary, long torturous bannings, that's correct. That would make anybody Looney Tune. That's correct. They're like, ooh, said Marbles. Thank God I haven't gone deranged. I haven't lost my so-called, my brain from those decisions. But if you ever think that I'm a joke, think again, think again. I don't go all that trouble. My God, my poor brother. I hope he's not a slave in Murupara. Hey, Constable Walter, are you a slave there? Are you enjoying your so-called, being an officer there in Murupara? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? Or are you doing what the sergeant is telling you to do through some other asshole or some other son of a bitch? That's correct. Who might actually be a criminal. That's correct. Instead of the, probably from a tail. No, my brother's probably doing what a tail is telling them to do. My brother is actually, our family, being nobles, we are heads. That's correct. We are not tails, like the sergeant of the police station. She's a tail. That's correct. That kind of decision or that kind of call that she made is a tail decision. It comes from a tail. That's not a head. Right. Let's hope things are going to change. Let's hope that they're going to serve my trespass notice the second time. Well, let's try again. Let's just try again. Let's be civil about it. That's great. But at least you've let it all out here on so-called, on your video. That's great, on this preaching. I sure do. Because I have had a guts full of this local township, and there's so disgusting arbitrary dictatorships, and this constant, need to control my privileges and deny my privileges as a noble. That's correct. What is this? You people deserve the hiding. Would you want me to burn down your township? Because, man, if I had any magical powers, I will call down brimstone. That's correct. Fire and brimstone to come down onto this local township to burn it down to dust. Because they are so fucking rude and disgusting. Thank God I don't have such powers. Now, as for the Archbishop, don't ever dictate to my privileges, please. Dictate to your own flock, dictate to your own sheep, dictate to your own property. You know what? I'm not, do you think I'm a slave, honey bun? Am I a slave to New Zealand? Well, they wish. Oh, they love you to be a slave. Well, they already think they are. They already think you're a slave. In your dreams, people, I'm an independent, free agent. If I didn't have any brains, I wouldn't close the what? I wouldn't close the kingdom. I wouldn't close the kingdom. If I wasn't a head, I wouldn't close the kingdom. That's correct. A lot of you aren't tails. That's correct. Well, I hope they now know how I feel about this decision that recently. Anyway, I want to thank the Indian staff from our local No Leeming, that's great, who came this evening to deliver up or to drop off my brand new microwave. That's great. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your kind donation. That's great. In the form of delivering or, dropping off my microwave. Normally, normally that doesn't happen. That's great. Because you'd have to pay for the service. But the kind staff down there in Low Leeming was so, accommodating, so accommodating. Well, I took some sort of material to tie it because I was going to carry it home. But you see, it was pouring down. It was raining today. That's great. So it was lovely. Such a gentleman, such a lovely staff of No Leeming local No Leeming store offered to deliver my so-called microwave, my brand new microwave. I want to thank Wince as well for that. Well, that's alone. But I got the microwave. That's my earned reward. That's great. Now, in terms of my trespass notice, they must be served because that is going to be used for my restraining order. I'm a noble. I know what I'm doing, honey bun. Do I look like I'm confused? Do I look like I'm crazy? You know what? A lot of you would like to think I'm crazy. I ain't crazy. And I'm sure that they would like to take you to the cuckoo's nest when you appear there at the courts. You know what? Thank God I look this way, honey bun. I just thank God that I don't have blonde hair and white skin, the like features of a European, looking like a Pacquiao, like the Sergeant Candy there down at the local police station. I'm just glad, you know what? I don't look like you. I don't sound like you. That's correct. Thank God, thank God. Otherwise, my eyes wouldn't be what? Wouldn't be this, wise. And I mean, sharp. My eyes are sharp. That's correct. My sword is sharp. My brain is sharp. But I don't like Pacquiaos who are jealous of nobles like myself. That you got to belittle us. That's correct. Especially my royal family. Oh, that's great. I know. It's terrible that even when they have blonde hair and white skin, that's great. And even when they've got a decent job, and even when they've got, like a salary of 200,000, well over 200,000, like Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Dr. Megan Woods, man, that green-eyed monster, it still gets in there. I don't need 200,000, in my bank account, let alone in my salary. To what? To make me feel superior. Superiority is something that isn't bought. It isn't earned. It is something that just comes in your genes. Yeah, that's correct. Now, if you're going to be green with envy, because they won't be able to handle the fact that on my trespass note it says His Royal Highness or Her Royal Highness, El Marilia Triviranus, brackets, Dr. Snow Brown. If they think that was a joke and that was funny, no, that wasn't supposed to be funny. I really am a full royal. That's great. It's just too bad. And man, it's not my problem that they can't handle that my status. That's great. Despite the fact that they're blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin color, salary of $200,000, that ain't my problem. That you can't handle. That when you read my so-called trespass notice, I ain't never seen such a beautiful trespass notice before, ever. I have never seen such sophistication in the most incredible way expressed in a trespass notice. I have never seen trespass notice like that in my entire life. That's correct. That's because we are royals and we are superior. Now, whether you like it, I don't need to have blonde hair. I told you I'm a black blondie. That's correct. I got a big mouth? Yeah. Well, just as well I got a big mouth. And just as well I've got these eyes that are like pearls and are like hawks and that are rare. That's great. I mean, I can see right through them. That's great, honey bun. Well, it has been nice catching up with you all today. Well, now you know what the drama is. Yeah, this is pretty dramatic. This is drama. Oh, this is better than what's that? The so-called soaps, Days of Our Lives, Dynasty, Falcon Crest. Oh, no, this is better than Emmerdale. That's great. What's the other one? Shortland Street? Oh, this is certainly better than Shortland Street. This is real. This is not made up. This is not made believe. This is for real, people. And if some Pākehās are so jealous it can't handle my trespass notice because it's so sophisticated and it's so unique, and they just don't, they don't think like that, do they? No, they just don't do things like that. Because I'm a German noble. German Pākehā. Despite you might all like to say I'm married. You know what? You wish. In fact, there's quite a lot in here inside this address. They got more rights to go and invade the so-called the kingdom of His Royal Highness, the Māori King. That's great. They've got more right to the Māori King than they do to this noble here at this address. Did you know that? It's because I ain't no Māori. That's great. Well, they don't know the difference. Well, let's just hope they're going to respect your boundaries. No more unlawful entries, no more draggings, because it is so painful. That's correct. And the trespassing, man, that's starting. Honey bun, I'm seriously thinking of ordering 1,000 Nazi soldiers from Germany to give them the bang, 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 death penalty. Straight to the head, bang, that's correct. Now, if you think I'm dangerous, my style of preaching is because I'm an ordained Knights Templar. King German, that's correct. Deutscher. Do I sound Scottish as well, man? Well, I think that's where you got your attitude as well. You Gaelic? Do I look Gaelic? Well, I guess you could say that I might sound Gaelic. You might say not. Well, I think when I read German and I read Gaelic and I do know how to sound like a Scottish, that's great, then you will know that maybe you are for real. That's correct. You really are a Pākehā. Yeah, I'm really a Pākehā. Eh? Different kind of Pākehā. Well, you all have a lovely evening. And I hope you enjoyed this so-called rare banquet about serving trespass notices. The predicament. Where is Watson? Hey, Watson, are you there? Sherlock Holmes? Right, good. I know. I love it too. Guinness. Guinness is one of my favorite drinks. I know. I just love the taste of Guinness. When I had my first pint of Guinness, I knew. I said to myself, it is a taste that I love, but it's a taste that is familiar to me, to my taste buds. That I've tasted before. Well, I mean, Jason Momoa loves drinking Guinness, and so do I. But of course, that doesn't mean a thing at all when we're dealing about trespass notices. As I said before, Animan, there are people out there that don't deserve the privilege of having their trespass notice served by a sworn officer. That's correct. They don't deserve that. Nobles deserve it more. Nobles like me deserve that privilege. That's correct. Except when some sort of sergeant, Goldilocks decide to deny that privilege only because a tale has told her, to dictate to my privileges, then I'm afraid we're always going to be dealing with tales, aren't we? That's great, but I ain't no tail in my head. No wonder. No wonder people end up dead. You wonder why they get 6 feet under. No, I don't have a habit. That's not a bad habit to serve notices like that. I'm a noble. I know what I'm doing. Hey, it's what I do. That is part of my ministry, part of my DNA. I belong in the courts. In fact, the judge would happily, invite me to sit on his lap like Santa Claus. That's great. You say, oh my gosh, where have you been? Yes, Your Honor. I come and sit on my lap. Madam, that's great. I will. Yes, Your Honor, I come sit on your lap. That's great. What else do you want me to do for you? Why? Because we speak the same language. Oh, don't get jealous now. That's great. because I'm a royal and you're not? It's okay. It's okay. I understand you. That's great. But I feel sorry. I feel sorry. I really feel sorry for them more so than me. That's correct. Because I got high self-esteem and you don't, New Zealand. A lot of you don't have self-esteem. If you had high self-esteem, hey, you wouldn't need to lash out at people where you need to feel the need to torture me. That's correct. And teach me lessons. If you had high self-esteem, which you do not, that's correct, because you're a bunch of tails and maniacs. That's right. All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, I wish you all a lovely evening, and may peace be with you, and may all the angels, that's correct, be upon all my precious little munchkins, special sorry lots, and sweet dreams. Peace out.